Hello, everyone. My name is David Lescalette. I am a Kutztown alumni, and I'm currently in the graduate program for art education, and I'm set to graduate in May of 2025. This is my penultimate class to graduating, and I've learned a lot in the process, and I'm excited to share what I've learned with you. And if you can just give me a moment, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so this research proposal is all about lessons in respect. It's a study on student behavior and teaching strategies. And again, my name is David Lescalet, and this is all from Kutztown University. Everything I've learned has been through Kutztown. And a little bit about me and my background is I currently teach fifth through eighth grade art in Reading, Pennsylvania. And my middle school kids are the greatest kids ever. They're also my biggest headaches sometimes. And so my experiences in teaching middle school have really challenged me in my professional, my personal abilities, in my communication, in my ability to engage students in things that I love. And these students are really special, but they really require restorative practices, which I'll get into later, and other supports that meet their emotional and their as well as IEP needs. And it's an element to teaching that I am not, comfortable saying I was prepared for in my undergrad. So what I found is that teachers that have less than 10 years experience, like me, or anyone that has just been introduced into the field of teaching, they have not gone through a mandatory education that actually addresses their the emotional needs that students have in our contemporary classrooms. And it before they even get their full-time job, there is no training in restorative practices or restorative justice techniques that are meant to engage and also unify students. And managing misbehavior of students as part of teaching, I mean, let's be realistic, but it also poses a very considerable challenge for teachers. And it's the primary source of anxiety, according to the citation that I've offered there. And so I've wondered, what are these behaviors in students? How do teachers and these students perceive each other in this contemporary world? And what can educators like myself, of all these different generations and years of experience, learn from one another? So these questions have gotten me started in my research journey. I've gotten to find these articles of so these three key articles have been very helpful in shaping my ideas for this. They've been kind of confirmations of what I've already suspected or what I've already know. And it's also kind of given me new insights into what I don't know. So, for example, that first statistic, or the first site I've offered is all about the statistics involving data about school violent incidences, bullying, cases of drug possession, and cases of security. So that has really addressed what I believe is the modern world. The second citation there has been all about the challenges and solutions to running a contemporary classroom. And it's given me some insight in how other places around the world see how classrooms can be managed or what techniques are useful in their specific environments. I personally am in an urban environment, so I'm always very aware of when practices or when theories don't match up to our realities or our situations. And the last citation there is all about the realities of teacher turnover and what kind of factors are contributing to teachers leaving the profession and how are teachers repairing the damage left behind. So those have been all very helpful in my formation of this research question. So my research question for this was, what factors influence middle level students' respect and compliances towards teachers? In short, I'm looking for the characteristics of teachers and how they teach and how do students respond to that? If they respond with respect, what incited that idea of respect? And if they're misbehaving, what is stopping them from receiving that respect or for earning it? So I also added two sub questions to this that I was trying to ask myself along the way. How do students define respectful behavior and how do they perceive their teachers and their management effectiveness? Excuse me. Based on various experiences, how do teachers respond to defiance and manage misbehaviors without hindering their relationship with students? I love the relationships I've formed with these students over the years. And the last thing I want to do in trying to manage a classroom is sacrifice the rapport I have with students. So this research is all about these ideas of what do we think respect is, how do we express it, and where do we learn it? And how does it, keep our classrooms running effectively? This research is relevant because in today's world, there are a lot more factors to our jobs as educators. There's a lot of um, anagrams and um, anecdotes and all this information that you don't learn in undergraduate days, that while you're trying to learn your first years of teaching, you're also learning how to run, how to exist in a district, how to legally do your job according to the district's bylaws. There's just so much more that our education systems could offer future teachers in preparing to be modern teachers. So, excuse me, getting a little cold here. So a teacher's decision to remain at any school and in their profession of teaching is influenced by personal characteristics and the factors related to their school environment. Two of the factors are the rapport between the teachers and the students and the support received by their administration. This is a research assignment that to me touches on factors affecting classroom behavior, keeping teachers in their professions, and improving overall student performance at the end of this. The knowledge of what makes these middle school students respect and listen to teachers can help us create more improved means of controlling classrooms and setting good learning environments. So continuing on, excuse me, my method for this research aligns with an ethnographic approach, which is the most immersive I found of researching a specific subject or environment because it involves sacrificing comfortability and putting oneself in an environment worth studying. So by doing this approach, I would be able to actually observe the dynamics of how students and teachers communicate and how the expectations meet the situations and realities of the class and how students and teachers respect each other. Another method that I've considered with this has been the phenomenal phenomenological approach due to its highlights and observations of students. I also want to see the patterns in the behavior and the responses. So that would mean looking at data and finding these patterns. So overall, a mixed approach would be best for this. And that's the best way I work personally. I don't like to fit to one grid. For frameworks in this research topic, I've drawn closer to the ideas of constructivism because it relies a lot on observations and an actual immersion in the environment. So by using qualitative methods, not I always get qualitative, quantitative. By using qualitative methods of collecting these forms of data like interviews, surveys, and listening to stories of others, I plan to expand my understanding of how other perspectives and realities collaborate and how they combine, how they differ. And this framework really is going to allow me to explore the shared experiences and the phenomena that they reveal. Another framework that I found myself drawing close to was pragmatism, because it aligns with my fluid approach to research and mixed methods of collecting data. I also would like to present this in a very untraditional, unconventional way, and that's what makes the process more engaging to me personally. So the pragmatic methods are grounded in practicality and they focus on solving problems effectively, which I find research is truly meant to be for. And I would love to ultimately help teachers in the future plan a better classroom. So, like I said, my ethnographic approach relies on observations and responses from willing participants. Analyzing this will consist of reading short answers, deciphering keywords and phrases, and comparing the numbers from the data from the multiple choices provided. Interviews will be conducted in person or virtually. Surveys will be conducted in, I found, a Google form, and observations will be done at an agreed time between the willing participants and myself. One of the ethnic um, elements to this was I wanted to be respectful of a teacher's time and and asking them to do this survey during their work time. So I wanted to make sure it wasn't hinging on anything that needed to be done with students or on work time. So with the pilot study that I did, I truly was just looking for a way to collect data that was easy for me and the participants. It was quick, it wouldn't infringe on their day. And all the participants consisted of other professionals and colleagues that I work with in my middle school environment. So I sent a handful, I would say about 50 people an email with the link to the survey. And the survey was a 10-question survey for these teachers to complete at a time that was convenient for them. Then later I would assess the data after overall 25 participants filled out the form, which is pretty good. I was expecting 10, I got 25. Here I provide some of the survey questions. Actually, these are all the survey questions I gave them. And some of these questions I wanted to gauge their experience. Some of these questions I wanted to gauge their opinions and just their overall um, feelings towards their profession. And then I also wanted to gauge how confident these teachers were in their professional abilities in managing a classroom and interacting with students. The data at the end of this was all done by these 25 participants, and I was able to get a glimpse of how some of them perceive their management styles and their interactions with students. So I was able to see the patterns in which they interact and how they manage their classroom. So I'm going to show some of the things that stood out to me personally, some of these responses and some of the data. So question 5 was, I asked, do you feel like you are respected by students? I wanted to see before I could study the students, I wanted to study how teachers perceive their interactions with students. So before we went on to disrespect, I wanted to ask if they felt respected by students. So I found that there was a even split of 44% of people who felt, yes, I'm respected by students, while another 44 chose, sometimes I feel respected by the students. Looking back at this, I would change this because the result became very unclear and it kind of gives me an opportunity to rephrase the question in the future surveys. I personally interpret the difference between these two groups as a variation in their confidence levels, and confidence is influenced by experience and time spent in the field. There were 12% of people who disclosed that they struggle to earn students' respect, and I'd like to further investigate their perspectives and observe their classroom practices to gather more detailed data. Question 7, I asked, in your college education, did you take a course specifically focused on classroom management? I wanted to gauge the experience of teachers and their classroom management techniques, and if it was truly from experience or if this was learned from an education base. So I found that 52% of respondents answered no. I did not take a course on classroom management. and 32% answered yes, a required course. So this shows that there's a discrepancy in formal training between the generations of teachers, I find, including Gen X, Millennials, and Gen Z. And to me, this appears that skills and methods taught in schools for the new teachers are quite different from what was given to teachers with more than 25 years of experience. These results show that there's a need or a greater need for workshops or group training that might facilitate cohesion between the educators across different generations and years of experience. Lastly, in question 8, I asked, which factor do you think has the greatest impact on student behavior in your classroom? This I wanted to gauge what the teachers felt like was their strength in their students' compliance towards them, and what's the element here that supports that. Interestingly enough, there was another 44% split, or 44 and 44 split, and 44% of the people said that classroom rules and expectations had the biggest impact on their student behavior. Another 44% thought their tone and communication style was most important. So I infer from this that the division that the teachers focus on is the different methods. So some may be mainly using relationship-based communication, and others relying on study routines to influence behavior. I felt that some of those Ash would find subject matter and content relevance an important part of classroom behavior, but interestingly, none of these 25 people chose this option. So this lack of response to me means that there's the subject matter seen as less important for the classroom environment or for the management methods. In further research, I would like to study how students' view would correspond to those of the teachers on these factors. So in conclusion, I felt the responses to these surveys were quite mixed and diverse. Sometimes I found the answers were a bit ambiguous, or they lacked the specific details that would make them a little bit more helpful to my purpose. But based on the vast information gathered from the survey, I can infer that a teacher's confidence in being able to control the classroom environment and earning the respect of students is generally results from the many years of dedicated service in the field, as well as the consistent application of established routines, while also conducting the process of teaching, if you can believe it. Furthermore, the survey results also yielded a very valuable knowledge regarding the discrepancies in teacher training programs. And in the future, I would like to see more inclusive, generational, expansive training that doesn't just involve a professor and undergrads, but teachers in the field working now of different experience. So the next steps involving this process is going to be for me improving the questioning and refining a lot of the tools that I created, like the survey, and scheduling some of these interviews for when the spring comes up with some of these teachers. The ones who participated were also given a chance to volunteer for further surveys, and those are the ones I will be starting with. I also plan to broaden my amount of literature and just reading more on current research that is around these topics like classroom management or student behavior. And lastly, I just want to be able to draft some framework for the future research that I plan on improving. Here I included some of the definitions, including restorative practices, which I mentioned earlier. This is an umbrella term that is used in my school. It's used for strategies that help students to proactively build community and relationships and manage conflict tensions. So I also included other words that I've mentioned throughout this process that I defined. And lastly, that is it. I would like to thank you for listening to my mini TED Talk here. Thank you so much for all those that have commented any help in the posts lately. And I look forward to learning all about your research proposals soon. So thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to stop recording. Thank you.